Okay, so I'm going to give you now an example of steps of how to try to reduce anxiety. And if you notice here, I picked one thing from each of our, from each of the categories. I picked one question, and I'll try to go with you through the steps that you would need to. So you get yourself a piece of paper, and you write down things that are in the same way, and you work then with each of them. So, for example, step one, turn anxiety into fear, which is outline all the goals you feel are threatened for you. Just bring a long piece of paper, the scroll, and you go through each one. You just outline every single goal that you have that has been threatened by this particular situation. So, for example, I feel trapped with my family, spending all of the time with, let's say you have spouse and the kids, or you have roommates. So you might have needs, you might have goals that have to do with privacy, time for yourself, that are suddenly violated. So you would, instead of saying, I feel trapped and you're making me feel claustrophobic to your children or your spouse, you would outline it as, I need private time for myself. So you just put it down. I need private time for myself. I need hour a day of time for I need 2 hours of day. I need not to be interrupted between 4 to 6 p.m., whatever this thing is for you, okay? How about I am endangering or am I endangering or neglecting my elderly parents, relatives? So let's say you have family members that you want to visit them, but you're endangering them. So what is it? Instead of saying I feel trapped, I can't, I try to be there for them, but they feel neglected. What do you want? You want your relatives to know that you're there for them and that you're connecting to them. So you put that. I want my family member, relative, friend to feel supported by me during this time. Okay, so that's a goal. Okay. How about what does this disruption mean for my long-term educational professional goals? What goal is being threatened? Your education. So, okay, what goal do you have? I want to use the time well so that my professional development or my educational development goes. Okay, I want to progress in this particular way during this time. And here, existential stance, and I know this may be difficult for some of us, but it's really, really important for us to reflect on what our relationship to death is at this time. So you might be a medical worker and you might be afraid you're going to sick and die or even infect your family. So it's very, very important for you to say, okay, what is it that I want? For example, I want to protect my family as much as I can. So then what does this mean in terms of goals? I need to quarantine myself. I need to make sure that they're not exposed to whatever I bring them home. Or it might mean, what if something happens to me? If you worry a lot about what will happen to your family member, well, it might mean having a very honest and difficult conversation with other family. So if I die, what will happen to my children? Or writing a will, or whatever is this thing that we need when we have a healthy relationship to death and to knowing to the potentiality of it, we know that we need to do. So instead of having it lurk at the back of your mind as a potential that you can't shake, to face it directly, to write down, obviously I don't want to die, therefore I'm going to implement these steps, but if something happens to me, here's the conversations that I need to have, or this is what I need to do to feel at peace with it. Okay? So you outline the goals, and you will notice that even after you do this, and I'll give you the rest of the steps, that you'll notice sometimes there'll be unconscious things. So you will watch yourself do something or say something or interact in a way that you didn't anticipate, which will show to you have some unconscious goal that you weren't afraid. So maybe you have a greater need for connection. You might have a need that you, up to this point, you didn't really yet grasp, and your behavior is going to. So that's the beautiful thing about the outside world kind of being receding, is that your inner life is suddenly going to become, although very challenging, it will become very visible to you what are your goals, even though they have up to this point been unconscious. Okay. I would avoid dwelling on wishes that can be turned into goals. So I'm sure that just like me, all of you wish that very quickly there's a vaccine that is going to be made to help us, the whole globe with this crisis. Now that's a wish, right? Why? Because for those of us who are not medical doctors or not epidemiologists, we can't do anything about it. If you can't do anything about it, then you should put it as one of your goals. But for the rest of us, instead of dwelling on the things that we can't make any impact on, we make any change on, I would focus us on the things that we can do something about. So just, if you want, you can have a list of wishes. I wish all these things, but that's not something to dwell on because it's likely to increase the sense of helplessness. I could wish for all sorts of things that I have no control over. And what is point of me wishing it? I mean, I can wish it, but unless I can support through my way of being through action, I might be wasting my time just basically fantasizing about other things that could happen in the world. After you put down list of goals, I want professionally this, I want that, I want physical, in terms of physical space. Again, it has to be achievable. It can't be a wish. For example, for if you have a disruption of educational or professional goals, it's not useful to say, oh, I wish to have landed the internship or the kind of job that I had planned before. Well, that's a wish rather than a goal. I need you to really focus on your goals. And then for each goal, create a list of very actionable steps. You take each goal, you give it actionable steps that can be implemented starting today, not tomorrow, next week, next month, when things change, but right away. And obviously, if you have actionable steps, you're going to start implementing them. And what would happen then, as anxieties turn into fear, and as you start doing small things every day, these fears would reduce. Because why? The emotion, you're doing what your emotion is asking you to do. So you're not being just exhibiting physiological symptoms of it, which is being restless. Notice being restless and unable to sleep, or even just sleeping too much. They're all kind of outcomes of inability to kind of really identify, here's the fear and here's what I can do about it, and then proceeding with the action. Okay, now if anxiety persists, okay, so we're going short on time, so I'm just going to go through very quickly. Feel free to, I'm going to take a short break for questions, so feel free to ask questions. If anxiety persists, so if you find that you're doing these steps and you still have anxiety, I recommend trying to contain it. So what do I mean by that? Give yourself 2 hours to be anxious. And in those 2 hours, you allow yourself to do things that you know may cause you anxiety. So for a lot of people, it's reading the news or talking about anxiety-inducing things. It's almost like you open anxiety space. And I would really recommend you keep a worry journal, because a worry journal then can be taken and put when we later on try to turn anxiety into fear, you can take a worry journal and kind of detect what are your anxieties. If you find that you're so anxious, and I really want you to be compassionate towards yourself. It's very good if you can take this time for self-development, but do it as much as you can. Be compassionate to yourself. If you find that you're worrying all the time, then what I would recommend, you basically separate out just self-development time. Take an hour or 40 minutes or 20 minutes in the evening and say, you know what, I've been worrying all day. Here's my self-development time. Okay, and have 20 minutes for that. You fence it out for yourself. Now, I'm going to take a couple of questions to see. There we go. All right, so there's one question about how anxiety is linked to the job search, hiring freeze, offer adjustments, or even being jobless for long periods of time. Okay, so think of it like this. You can't control, so I'm just gonna stop sharing for a moment so that I can see the questions better. Okay, I can see them better now. So think of it like this. You can't control when the companies are going to start offering jobs. You can't control most of the things about how economy is gonna be doing. But what you can control is what you will be able to contribute inside of it once it does start, once you have that link to the outside world. Sooner or later, this will end. And when it ends, I wish that I don't wish, because I know you can do it. I want you to be able to look back at this time and say, yeah, I did not have an opportunity to land that job or internship or to be, or my offer was adjusted, but I have done these things. So again, limit the amount of time you're worrying about when this whole thing will start up, and just plan, because we don't actually know. But instead of just hoping that it will go away, just think, okay, I have this time now. And what can I do to make myself more useful, more creative, more valuable when I, again, re-enter into the world? That's entirely under our control. So your ability to do the inner change, to be able to contribute more, be it, all of these online things, that is the thing that is going to make a difference on the way out. So that when you look back, you say, yeah, I could not apply, there was no jobs for a long time, but here's what I have done with my time. I have another question. How do we help peers or direct reports deal with the anxiety of potentially losing their jobs or being laid off work? So this is very difficult, particularly if you're the one who has to lay them off work. So here's one suggestion that I have, which is you need to feel good about what you're doing in relation. So you can offer to your colleagues, not promises. If you can't promise them that they're not going to be laid off, and you can't promise them, they might be looking for promises of that kind. But again, so try to not communicate until you have figured out what it is that is reachable. Maybe there's maybe some resources you can share with them. Maybe they want the contact. Maybe they want opportunities for self-development. There's a bunch of things that you can do, and then point it out for them, and then give it to them. And then there's a bunch of things you can't promise them. And those things you can be honest, just say, here, I can't promise this, but here's the set of things that I can give you. I can offer you, we can work on it together. I'm going to put in my effort to to make sure that during this time you're using it as well as you can. So don't promise what you can't do that have to do with goals or when the economy will start up, but figure out what it is that you can do and what they can do, and make it actionable for them, right? You offer this to them. Okay,